My name is Genevieve Haliburton, and I'm a postdoc here in Alex Marston's lab at UCSF, and I am studying gene regulation during autoimmune response. So I'm a computational biologist mostly, branching out more into experimental things, but I got my PhD in bioinformatics, which is basically the intersection of biology and computer science using computational tools to understand biological questions. And this became a really interesting field in the past 10 years or so when all of a sudden with genomics and proteomics and other large-scale data projects, we were able to gather all this information about biological systems, but you need to then figure out a way to make sense of them. There's so much information, you couldn't just like flip through them and read it. So I develop computational methods, algorithms, and whatnot, and apply existing tools as well to kind of disentangle a lot of the genomic information or proteomic information. So I've always been really interested in just understanding the natural world, and it started when I was little. I just loved animals, and so throughout my whole life I always loved animals. And then when I was in college, I studied ecology, behavior, and evolution, really focusing on the evolution, like how do all animals relate to each other in the natural world. So really not so much lab work, but more field work, understanding, like going out into the field and looking at different animal populations. And then when genetics started blowing up about 10 years ago, it really became clear that this is really a way to get to how different species relate to each other and kind of where did humans come from, and how does the natural world really relate? Because it's just one common language relating all plants and animals and everything. So that was really fascinating to me, and so that got me interested in understanding genetics and then gene regulation specifically. So now we're working on understanding gene regulation during autoimmune responses and in the immune system. So it's kind of every step of the way, and focusing narrower and narrower, but all tied back to like what's the deal with the natural world.
So right here, what I'm looking at is the axis. So each dot is an individual cell.
So the way that I've heard bioinformatics described that I think is really apt is that you're a jack of all trades and master of none. So you're not as good at designing algorithms as a computer scientist, but you're decent. You're not as good at developing statistical methods as a statistician, but you're good with statistics. You're not as good at all of the biological tools as a bench scientist or like a molecular biologist, but you know how all the methods work and you can do them. So it's kind of just being able to integrate all of that, kind of being able to have a toe in every water. But really what drives it all is biology. I'm not really interested in like optimizing algorithms. I'm interested in like what computational tools can we use or could I develop that can allow us to better understand these biological questions, better understand how are genes regulated, better understand what is actually going on in biology. People think of genetics as just looking at genes, and historically that's been looking at a really small part of the whole genome, like 2% or something. But it turns out that these gene regulatory elements are really driving a lot of the diseases that we're seeing, and so disentangling all of the switches that are turning the genes on and off. Are they turning them on at the right time? Are they turning them off at the right time, in the right cell type? All of this is really important. So that's actually what we're going at. So hoping to help autoimmune patients. When it comes down to it, I would consider myself like a biologist. I'm interested in immunology. I'm interested in gene regulation. I'm interested in development. I don't think anyone would really be like, oh, I'm interested in like parsing data files. No, nobody gets into it for that. It's like nobody gets into bench work because they love pipetting. You get into it because you love the question.